Hello, welcome to the place on the internet I talk about comic books. I'm going to keep this really brief because I just did a version of this that went 20 minutes and it was completely unnecessary and I don't want to take the time to edit that shit. Listen, if you want truly deep dives, there's a few dozen podcasts that I feel like you could pursue. I'm here just to shoot a couple ideas into the air, give you something maybe to think about or to talk about with your friends or to leave in the comments, and hopefully kind of further the discourse about about things in comic books that I love, right? So today I'm going to hammer a hobby horse that is just endless for me. However, I think it is germane exactly today, and for that reason I'm going to talk about it. I am in a dim room. I honestly cannot tell if I'm falling in and out of focus because my eyes are bad. Dim is very bad for me. So this may be an audio podcast. Apologies. So, let's see. Is that better? Okay. So, today, it was announced that Criminal, which is the long-running series by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, has been picked up by, I believe, Amazon. Congratulations to them. I'll be honest, I don't... this is not some weirdo elitist thing. I think comics are the thing. When somebody gets something picked up, it's obviously good fortune. It's going to be good for their family. They're going to make money. But I'm never, my excitement is in the same way that someone else's birthday happens, where you go, oh, this is good for you, man. In this case, it dovetails nicely with something that I wanted to talk about anyway. So Todd McFarlane's been doing the podcast rounds. He's always talking about a self-directed, self-determined career where you take advantage of the market, you take advantage of your strengths, and you take advantage of the moment. And he's all around inspiring. I think that the younger creators are starting to look at him as just an old head from an era that maybe doesn't have a ton of application to what they're doing right now. But, I mean, even if you disagreed with the man, certainly he has earned the right to speak. Not just because he's made a ton of money in comics, but because he has done it by taking risks. So, always happy to listen to that guy. And recently listened to him on the Ink Pulp podcast. Pardon me, it doesn't roll off the tongue well. Good podcast. They're a little chatty, but if you like them, then that's awesome. And if you just want kind of the granular nuts and bolts comic book creator material, just fast forward a little bit and they get to it. So on that podcast, Todd talked about taking advantage of your catalog, your bibliography, multiple times over the course of your career, and how you're only really able to do that if you work in creator-owned, right? And that's my hobby horses. I feel like creator-owned is where the interesting stuff is happening. It's where you get to express yourself. It's where there's fewer hands touching you, which is basically, that's the ideological argument, is that real art happens when there's not a ton of fingerprints on a thing. That's the philosophical, ideological argument for creator-owned. The more practical argument, the utilitarian argument that Todd was bringing up in this podcast, is when you own something, you can repackage it ad infinitum, and you can repackage it at the right moment. You can take advantage of something breaking your way in a unique, once-in-a-lifetime fashion and see generational wealth off of it. Now, I don't suggest that that's going to happen to any of you or to me or to anybody, but it has happened. And the Brubaker Phillips thing, Criminal being announced, is potentially a good example. Let's say that does well. Let's say that it starts it doesn't have to be Walking Dead size phenomenon, but let's just say that it kicks up interest in their original work. It's going to direct people to the stores. Now, there's some argument that this doesn't happen. It doesn't really happen to Marvel and DC for whatever reason. It does happen to creator-owned books. Don't know why, but people go into bookstores first, probably, and then eventually comic book stores, and they don't know anything about the property except what they saw on television. And if you hand them a really good product that makes sense to them, it's numbered in a way that's cohesive, they will buy it. Walking Dead proves that. Walking Dead was a license to print money because there was volumes in print. You repackage that, you do omnibuses, you do whatever. You can do coloring books. It does not matter. You get it out to people in formats that make sense to them, and stock that may not have been moving. Walking Dead was. It was popular. But let's say, for example, stock that just had slowed in whatever way, picks up again, and you can keep that machine going. You can't do that if you work for Marvel and DC. You will get residuals. You get a royalty of a type. So let's say, famously, Rob Liefeld. He is not unhappy with his arrangement because he created Deadpool. Deadpool has been exploited by film rather, and obviously he gets a chunk of these things. He's not crying about it. It works for him, and obviously this is why you see a lot of creators at this exact moment working for the big two who are just spamming characters into the universes. A lot of them are pretty thin. They're basically just names and costumes. But those creators know that those properties could be somehow, they could end up in a CW Arrow show, and they're going to get a check off of it. Because the film and television doesn't really care about those characters. Sorry, everybody, if you thought they did. But they don't really care about those characters. They're just ideas that they can bounce off of. And if you have a cool-looking character with a cool name, they'll make it into something else, but you'll still get the check. And listen, if that sounded dismissive of the corporate creators that are doing that at the moment, I'm not mad at you. You found a way to make a little bit of money in that atmosphere and that structure. So God bless. And by the way, just because I'm always pushing creator-owned is not to say I've got any vendetta against Marvel or DC, the corporate publishers. I simply think that you have to put creator-owned first in your life. I think it's awesome if you want to do corporate work, if you're inspired in some way and there's something that you can make happen there that's exciting for you, but you got to put creator-owned first. And aside from the ideological reasons, maybe you don't share those, maybe you're a boring-ass person, there's the utilitarian reason, the practical idea here, that those 50 issues that you did for Image, you can call them up and say, I've got something cooking at one of the streamers. I want this churned out. I want to make sure that there's enough volumes of this in stores to satisfy any demand that comes in these buildings. And they'll say, cool, let's turn on the printing press. Or they'll say, and then you say, okay, well, I own it, so let's figure out what's next, right? So if you do that at Marvel, if you call them up and say, hey, I heard that there's a new Avengers movie coming out. I did a run on the Avengers that was well received. It's out of print. I'm only seeing it in these kind of. I'm getting checks. It's cool. Every couple of years I get the $6,000. But could you maybe put it back in print? I'm sure people would love it. They'll go, yeah, we'll take it under advisement, right? Or maybe you won't get a reply. So, in one way, and Kirkman is obviously an outlier. He's achieved things that are, you could, if you wanted to be dismissive, you could say dumb luck. If you wanted to give him all the credit, you could say he's a mastermind and a genius. Both of them are very difficult to replicate. So he is an exception and an outlier in whatever respect, whatever fucking lens you want to see him through. So I'm not telling you that you should enter your creator-owned life with the attitude that you're going to be Robert Kirkman. But I think that you should see it as a Brubaker Phillips thing. Hey, there's something we're good at. Hey, we're going to do a lot of it. Hey, that's catalog should this ever break. Oh, it broke. Oh, we're going to streaming. Oh, it's getting a push. Oh, it's well received. Oh, people are going into stores. Oh, license to print money. I'm creating generational wealth. Yeah, look, a lot of you got bad ideas. I've got a lot of unsaleable ideas. Maybe it goes nowhere for you. But wouldn't you rather have any shot at that? Wouldn't you rather the lottery ticket existed at least? Here's another example. The Crow. Comes out in 94, I think. Sells 750,000 copies of that collected volume. It was put out by Caliber, and then I think maybe Kitchen Sink did the trade, basically. But 750,000 copies over the next couple of years, over the next few years. Since that time, there's been more volumes of The Crow, more series of The Crow. However, in 1994, there was one volume The next volume didn't come out till 1996, I want to say. Maybe 1998. I think 96. Now, imagine if you could do $750,000 twice. Imagine if you could do $750,000 4 times. You know, it's a big difference. It's a big difference. Please, if you are a creator watching this, an aspiring creator early in your career, and your aspiration is to do Spider-Man. Hey man, I fucking love Spider-Man. These things mean something to me the same way they mean something to you. But if you are not focusing on creator-owned work, you are selling yourself short, you're selling the medium short, and you might be selling your grandchildren short. So, again, these are not meant to be long. It's just it's Todd's idea, and it's one that Kirkman has said before. It's a talking point. But I thought with Criminal coming out in streaming, and the money that is going to be directed to those creators through sales of their books, which are going to be republished, I just think that this is something that you should bear in mind. It is a real thing that could happen to you if you create great work that stands the test of time and goes long enough to make money off of later. So that's all I had to say. Thank you for listening, as always. Hit me with any questions. I'm getting good questions, and I will get to them. I'm currently recording, in a recording studio doing vocals, and I don't have the time that I normally do, but I will answer your questions if you drop them in the comments or email me. Thank you. Have a great night.